Scrub harder. Do you think you are too good for this? You little brat? The words echoed through the marble hallway of the 15,000 square foot Malibu mansion, like poison dripping from a silver spoon. A small girl, only 7 years old, knelt on the cold stone floor. Her tiny hands, red and raw from chemical cleaners, moved desperately across the surface. The maid uniform hung on her thin frame like a shroud, sleeves rolled up multiple times, the hem pooling around her knees. Tears fell silently onto the gleaming marble, each drop a tiny act of rebellion against the woman standing above her. Victoria Monroe watched without mercy. Her emerald eyes, so beautiful in candlelight, now held the warmth of winter frost. Her perfectly manicured hand gripped a glass of wine. Everything about her posture spoke of ownership, control, absolute dominion over this child who should have been her daughter. But Victoria had never wanted a daughter. She had wanted $40 million. And this little girl was simply an obstacle to be removed. The child's name was Emma Hayes, and she was cleaning the floor of her own home like a servant. Somewhere far away, 6,000 miles across the Pacific Ocean, Emma's father sat in a Singapore boardroom. Daniel Hayes had no idea that the woman he had married 3 weeks ago was destroying his daughter. He had no idea that his choice to trust, to love again after devastating loss, had invited a monster into their lives. But he was about to find out. Because hidden in the smoke detector above the hallway, a camera recorded everything. And the man who had installed it, a security expert named Ryan Blake, was watching. His hands trembled with rage as he saved the footage to a server Victoria could never access. The clock was ticking. Emma had 12 days before Victoria planned to ship her to a boarding school in Switzerland. 12 days before she disappeared from her father's life forever. But none of them knew about Dominic Monroe yet. Victoria's brother, the mastermind, the one who never forgave mistakes. This story begins 8 months earlier, before Victoria, before the abuse, before Emma learned that not all smiles hide kindness, and not all promises mean safety. This story begins with grief. Act 1.1. The Wound. The photograph sat on Emma's nightstand in an ornate silver frame. Grace Hayes smiled out from the image, her arms wrapped around a 4-year-old Emma at the beach. Mother and daughter laughing, sun in their hair, ocean waves in the background. A moment of pure, uncomplicated joy. That woman had been dead for 3 years. Emma, now 7, sat on her bed holding the frame against her chest. Her brown hair, the same shade as her mother's, fell around her small face. Her eyes, too knowing for 7 years, stared at the ceiling of her bedroom. The room was enormous. Walk-in closet, private bathroom, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific. Most children would call it paradise. Emma called it lonely. "Daddy, do you think Mommy can see us from heaven?" The question hung in the air as Daniel Hayes entered his daughter's room. At 45 years old, he looked older than his years. The burden of running Hayes cybersecurity, of protecting the digital assets of Fortune 500 companies across 6 continents, had carved lines into his face. The burden of losing Grace had carved deeper ones into his soul. He sat on the edge of Emma's bed, the mattress barely registering his weight. His hand, so confident when signing contracts worth millions, trembled slightly as he brushed a strand of hair from Emma's face. "I am sure she can, sweetheart. And I know she is very, very proud of you." Emma's small finger traced her mother's smiling face in the photograph. Grace had been gone since Emma was 4. Breast cancer had taken her quickly, brutally, leaving Daniel and Emma grasping at shadows of the life they had known. "I miss her," Emma whispered. "Me too, baby girl." Daniel's voice cracked on the last word. "Me too." On Emma's wrist, barely visible beneath the sleeve of her pajamas, was a delicate bracelet, sapphire stones set in white gold. The last gift Grace had given her daughter before the cancer made gift-giving impossible. Emma never took it off. It was her connection to the mother she could barely remember but desperately loved. "Time for sleep," Daniel said, leaning down to kiss Emma's forehead. "You have school tomorrow." He stood, moved toward the door, his phone already buzzing in his pocket. Work. Always work. The only thing that made the emptiness bearable. "Daddy?" Emma's voice stopped him at the threshold. "Yes, sweetheart. Will you read me a story tonight?" Daniel looked at his phone. 3 missed calls, 7 unread messages. A crisis in the Tokyo office that needed his immediate attention. He looked back at his daughter, small and alone in her enormous bed, clutching a photograph of her dead mother. I cannot tonight, baby, but tomorrow. I promise tomorrow. It was a lie. They both knew it. Daniel would be on a plane to Singapore by tomorrow. Another emergency, another crisis, another reason to run from the grief that lived in every corner of this house. Emma turned her face to the wall and said nothing. After Daniel left, Helen Carter, the housekeeper, who had been with the Hayes family for 15 years, quietly entered Emma's room. She was 58, gray hair pulled back in a neat bun, eyes that had seen too much sadness in this house. She sat where Daniel had sat and gathered Emma into her arms. Your daddy loves you, sweetheart. He just does not know how to show it anymore. Emma, wise beyond her years, whispered into Helen's shoulder. He does not know how to be here. He only knows how to be gone. Helen had no answer for that, because it was true. Hook 2, Emma's secret sacrifice. The next morning, sunlight flooded Emma's bedroom. She woke early before the house stirred and pulled a cardboard box from under her bed. Inside were her treasures. American Girl dolls still in pristine condition. A collection of My Little Pony figures. Illustrated Disney books. A complete set of Harry Potter hardcovers. Everything she loved most in the world that was not her father or the memory of her mother. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor and began making 2 piles. Keep and sell. The dolls went into sell. The ponies went into sell. Half the books went into sell. She was crying by the time Helen found her 20 minutes later. Emma? Sweetie, what are you doing? Emma looked up, tears streaming down her face but determination in her eyes. Daddy's birthday is next week. I want to buy him a present, but I do not have money. Helen's heart, already fractured from watching this family break apart, cracked a little more. Oh, honey, your father does not need anything. He has everything. Emma shook her head fiercely. He needs to know I love him, even when he is not here, even when he forgets about me. She held up her favorite doll, the one Grace had given her for her 5th birthday. This one will bring maybe $40. And the ponies, maybe 30 more. The books, maybe 20. Helen knelt beside the little girl, cupped her face in weathered hands. Emma Hayes, you are 7 years old. You should not have to sell your toys to prove you love your father. But Emma's mind was made up. That afternoon, with Helen's reluctant help, she would post the items online. By week's end, she would have $93. Enough to buy Daniel a leather-bound journal from the bookstore downtown. On the first page, she would write in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, for Daddy. So you can write down all the things you want to tell me, but do not have time to say. Love, Emma. Daniel would receive it. He would cry in his office where no one could see, and he would fail to understand that his daughter had given up her childhood to buy him a gift he did not deserve. But that realization would come later, much later, after everything had already gone wrong. Scene 2, Daniel's emptiness. Daniel stood alone in his home office, surrounded by screens. Each monitor displayed security alerts from different clients. Banks in London, tech companies in Silicon Valley, government contractors in Washington. His company protected them all. But he had failed to protect Grace from cancer. And now he was failing to protect Emma from his own inability to be present. The office was on the opposite end of the mansion from Emma's bedroom, as far away as possible while still being under the same roof. Daniel told himself it was for focus, to minimize distractions. But Helen knew the truth. He had chosen distance, chosen work over witnessing his daughter's pain because her pain reminded him of his own. 3 screens to his left displayed the Tokyo office. 6 screens to his right showed London. The massive screen directly in front of him tracked real-time cyber threats across the globe. Daniel's company, Hayes Cybersecurity, was one of the best in the world. They had prevented 17 major data breaches in the past year alone, saved billions in assets, protected millions of identities. But Daniel could not protect his own daughter from loneliness. His phone buzzed. Text from Helen. Emma had nightmares again. 3rd night this week. She called for you. Guilt twisted in his chest like a knife turning slowly. He had been in this office 30 feet away and had not heard her crying. Or perhaps he had heard and chosen not to respond. He was not sure which was worse. A memory surfaced, unbidden. Grace in the hospital bed 3 days before she died. her hand, skeletal from the cancer, reaching for his. Promise me you will be there for Emma. Do not let work steal you away from her. She needs her father. Promise me, Daniel. He had promised. With tears streaming down his face, he had sworn he would never let Emma feel alone. And then he had broken that promise every single day for 3 years. His phone rang. Singapore office. Crisis with the Chen account. They needed him on the ground. Tomorrow morning flight. Daniel answered the call and began making arrangements to leave his daughter again. Hook 3. Helen's Dilemma. In her small room on the mansion's third floor, Helen Carter stared at her phone. A message glowed on the screen, sent from Guatemala, from her nephew Miguel. Tia, when can I come? It is dangerous here. The gangs are getting worse. Please, Miguel was 19, undocumented, waiting on immigration papers that Danielle had promised to help expedite. Good kid, smart, hardworking, deserved a chance at the life Guatemala could not provide. But if Helen pushed Daniel too hard about Emma, if she made him uncomfortable, if she became an inconvenience, she could lose her job. And if she lost her job, Miguel lost his only chance at safety. She closed her eyes against the impossible choice. From down the hall, she heard it. Emma crying, soft, muffled sobs from behind a closed door. The child was trying to be quiet, trying not to bother anyone. 7 years old and already learning that her pain was an inconvenience to the people who should have cared most. Helen stood, moved toward Emma's room, then stopped. If she went in, if she comforted Emma every time Daniel failed to, was she enabling his absence? Was she making it easier for him to stay disconnected? But if she did not go in, Emma cried alone. 7 years old and alone in a mansion full of people. Helen made her choice. She went to Emma, held her until the crying stopped, sang the lullaby Grace used to sing. Tomorrow, she told herself. Tomorrow she would talk to Daniel. Tomorrow she would make him see what he was doing to his daughter. But tomorrow Daniel announced he was leaving for Singapore, and the conversation never happened. Scene 3. The Loneliness. Breakfast at the Hayes mansion was a ritual of absence. The dining table could seat 16 people. Emma sat at one end with a bowl of cereal. Daniel sat at the other end with his tablet, scrolling through emails. The distance between them was 20 feet. It might as well have been 20 miles. Helen moved between them, pouring coffee for Daniel, offering fruit to Emma. She was the only thread connecting father and daughter. Without her, they might forget they were family at all. I have to go to Singapore next week, Daniel said without looking up from his screen. 5 days this time. Emma's spoon clattered against her bowl. Only 5 days? Her voice was small, hope and disappointment mixing in equal measure. Yes, I will be back before you know it. But Emma did know it. 5 days would become 7. 7 would become 10. Daniel would call every night for the first 3 days, then every other night, then whenever he had a spare moment between meetings. The pattern was established, reliable in its neglect. Will you bring me something? Emma asked, following the script they had created over 3 years of his absences. Of course. What would you like? Surprise me. What Emma wanted to say was, I want you. I want you to stay. I want you to read me stories and ask about my day and notice that I sold all my favorite toys to buy you a birthday present you do not deserve. But Emma was 7, and she had already learned that some truths make adults uncomfortable. So she said, surprise me, and watched her father smile like he had given her something precious. Hook 4. The Gala Invitation. That afternoon, while Daniel took a conference call in his office, Helen cleaned his desk. Beneath a stack of contracts, she found an envelope. Thick, expensive paper. Gold embossing, Children's Hospital Charity Gala. Saturday, 8 p.m., Beverly Hills Hotel. Helen stood holding the invitation, an idea forming. Daniel had not attended any social function in 18 months, not since Grace's funeral. He worked, he traveled, he came home to sleep. That was the extent of his existence. But this gala benefited the hospital where Emma had been born, where Grace had received her cancer treatment. It meant something. And more importantly, it would force Daniel out of his isolation, if only for a few hours. When Daniel emerged from his office, phone pressed to his ear, Helen waited. She held up the invitation as he passed. Just decline it, he said, barely glancing at her. I will be preparing for Singapore. Helen had worked for the Hayes family for 15 years. She had changed Emma's diapers, had held Grace's hand during chemotherapy, had earned the right to speak her mind. Sir, if I may, you have not been out in months. It might be good for you to connect with people again. Daniel stopped walking. His finger hovered over his phone, about to end the call with whoever was on the other end. For a moment, Helen saw something flicker across his face. Uncertainty, loneliness, the recognition that his life had become nothing but work and grief. Make the arrangements, he said finally. Helen did, and in doing so, she set in motion the events that would nearly destroy Emma's life. Because at that gala, Daniel Hayes would meet Victoria Monroe. And Victoria Monroe had been waiting for someone exactly like him. Act 1.2, Meeting the Devil. The Beverly Hills Hotel ballroom glittered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow light across designer gowns and custom tuxedos. A string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that cost more per bite than most people spent on a meal. Daniel Hayes stood at the bar, alone in a crowd of 500 people. His tuxedo fit perfectly. His watch cost $30,000. He looked like he belonged. He felt like an imposter. This had been Grace's world. She had loved these events, moving through crowds with natural grace, making everyone feel seen and valued. Daniel had been her quiet counterpart, content to watch her shine. Without her, he was adrift. You look like you would rather be anywhere but here. The voice came from beside him. Daniel turned. The woman was stunning. 34 years old, though she could pass for younger. Platinum blonde hair fell in waves past her shoulders. Emerald green eyes studied him with what seemed like genuine interest. Her dress was simple, black, elegant. While other women competed for attention with sequins and plunging necklines, she had chosen understated sophistication. Everything about her was calculated. But Daniel, drowning in his own loneliness, could not see the trap being set. "Is it that obvious?" he asked, managing a small smile. She returned the smile. "Only to another person who feels the same way. Victoria Monroe." She extended her hand. Daniel shook it. Her grip was firm, confident. The touch of a woman who knew her own worth. Daniel Hayes. Her eyes lit up with recognition. The reaction was perfectly timed, rehearsed to seem spontaneous. "Hayes Cybersecurity. You protect half the Fortune 500 from threats. I read your profile in tech today last month." Daniel raised an eyebrow, both flattered and surprised. "You follow cybersecurity?" Victoria leaned closer, voice dropping to a more intimate register. "I follow interesting people. The article mentioned your daughter, Emma, right? It said you are raising her alone." And there it was, the hook, the carefully researched detail that would make Daniel feel seen. Most women at these events asked about his money, his company, his connections. Victoria asked about his daughter. Something in Daniel's chest loosened. A wall he had built around his grief cracked just slightly. "Yes, Emma. She is 7 now. The article said you lost your wife. I'm so sorry." Daniel nodded, unable to speak past the sudden tightness in his throat. Victoria's hand touched his arm. Light, brief, comforting. "My mother died when I was young. I know what it is like to grow up with that kind of absence. Emma is lucky to have you." It was a lie. Victoria's mother was alive and living in Florida, blissfully unaware that her daughter had become a professional predator. But Daniel, desperate for absolution, desperate to believe he was not failing Emma catastrophically as he feared, accepted the lie as truth. They talked for 2 hours. Victoria's research was impeccable. She knew Daniel's company had just landed the NATO contract, knew his headquarters had moved from Seattle to Malibu 2 years ago, knew he had started Hayes Cybersecurity after Grace's death, pouring his grief into building something he could control when everything else felt chaotic. "How do you know all this?" Daniel asked finally, unsettled by how much this stranger knew about his life. Victoria's smile never wavered. "I do my homework on people I find fascinating." Hook 5. Victoria's research. What Daniel did not know was that Victoria had been studying him for 18 months, long before they met at this gala, long before she engineered their chance encounter. She knew his net worth down to the last million, knew about the offshore accounts, the real estate holdings, the stock portfolio, 43 million in liquid assets, another 35 million in property and investments. She knew he was a widower with a young daughter, knew he was drowning in work to avoid facing his grief, knew he was lonely, isolated, vulnerable, perfect prey. Victoria and her brother Dominic had run this operation 6 times before, twice successfully. They had refined it to an art form. Step 1, research. Find a wealthy man, recently widowed or divorced, preferably with children. Step 2, create the chance encounter. Make him feel seen, understood, chosen. Step 3, become indispensable. To him, to his children, to his life. Step 4, marry quickly, before he has time to dig into her background. Step 5, isolate the children. They always got suspicious first, remove them from the equation. Step 6, drain the accounts, create offshore transfers, establish legal precedent for community property claims. Step 7, file for divorce, take half of everything. Step 8, disappear before anyone could prove fraud. They had done it twice completely. Harold Winters, 72-year-old oil executive, married Victoria, died 6 months later of a heart attack. She inherited $12 million. Gregory Chen, 68-year-old real estate developer, married Victoria, died of a stroke after 8 months. She inherited $9 million. The other 4 attempts had failed at various stages. Men who got suspicious too quickly, background checks that uncovered discrepancies. One man's adult children who hired a private investigator. But Daniel Hayes was different. He was younger, sharper, worth more. And his daughter was 7 years old, easy to manipulate, easy to remove. Victoria had chosen him carefully, and now, standing in this ballroom, she reeled him in with practiced expertise. Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Victoria laughed at his jokes, asked insightful questions about his work, shared carefully edited stories about her own life. Everything she said was designed to make him feel comfortable, understood, attracted. By the end of the evening, Daniel had her phone number, and Victoria had her hooks in deep. 2 weeks later, Victoria appeared at Emma's school art show. Daniel was surprised to see her there. "You mentioned it at the gala," Victoria said warmly. "I studied art history in college." I could not resist. Another lie. Victoria had barely graduated high school, but she had researched Grace's interests obsessively. Knew Grace had loved art, knew she had taken Emma to museums, knew this was the way into Emma's world. When Emma's watercolor painting won 3rd place, Victoria applauded enthusiastically. Her smile was radiant. Her pride seemed genuine. After the show, Daniel introduced them. "Emma, this is my friend Victoria." Emma looked up at the beautiful woman with cautious eyes. At 7, she had already learned to protect herself from the revolving door of her father's acquaintances. People came and went. Her father's attention came and went. Trusting strangers led to disappointment. Victoria crouched to Emma's eye level. Perfect maternal body language. Non-threatening. Warm. "Your painting reminded me of Monet's water lilies. Have you seen them in books?" Emma's eyes widened. Mommy had a book about Monet. She loved his paintings. Victoria's pulse quickened. Jackpot. She had found the connection. Grace, the dead mother, the key to both Emma's and Daniel's hearts. "She had excellent taste," Victoria said softly, voice thick with the manufactured emotion. "Maybe sometime we could look at that book together, if you would like." Emma, starved for female attention, for any echo of her mother, nodded slowly. Daniel watched the interaction with something warm unfurling in his chest, something he had not felt in 3 years. Hope. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, his family could be whole again. He did not see the calculation in Victoria's eyes, did not see how she studied Emma like a scientist studying a specimen, analyzing weaknesses, planning exploitation. Daniel only saw a beautiful woman being kind to his daughter, and he let his guard down completely. Hook 6, Helen's warning. 6 weeks passed. Victoria became a fixture in the Hayes household. She joined them for weekend dinners, took Emma to museums, helped with homework, made Daniel laugh for the first time since Grace died. To everyone watching, it seemed perfect. Except Helen. Helen Carter had raised Emma from birth. She knew the child better than anyone, perhaps even better than Daniel. And she saw what he could not. The way Victoria's smile died the instant Daniel turned away. The way she watched Emma with cold assessment rather than warmth. The way her phone buzzed constantly with messages from someone identified only as D, messages she always stepped away to answer. One evening, Helen found Daniel alone in his office. She closed the door behind her. "Sir, may I speak freely?" "Of course, Mrs. Carter." Daniel looked up from his screens, surprised by her serious tone. Helen chose her words carefully. She needed Daniel to hear this, but she also needed to keep her job, needed to protect Miguel's chance at immigration. "Miss Monroe seems very lovely, and Miss Emma certainly enjoys her company. But," she hesitated. "But what?" "I have noticed she is different when you are not in the room. Not bad, just different. Less warm, perhaps?" Daniel frowned. "Different how?" Helen struggled to articulate what her instincts screamed. It was nothing concrete, just the sense that Victoria was performing, that the warmth and affection were a costume she wore only when observed. "It is nothing specific, sir. Just an old woman's feeling. Pay me no mind." She left quickly, frustrated with herself for not finding the words to make him understand. Daniel dismissed the concern entirely. Helen was lonely, protective of Emma, resistant to change. That was all. He continued dating Victoria, and 6 months later, he proposed. The proposal happened on the beach below the mansion at sunset. Emma watched from the terrace above, hopeful and terrified in equal measure. Victoria said yes. Emma convinced herself it would be okay. Daniel believed he had found a way forward through his grief, and Helen watched it all with growing dread, powerless to stop the disaster unfolding before her eyes. The wedding was 3 weeks later. Small ceremony in the mansion garden, white roses everywhere. Victoria had insisted, saying she wanted to honor Grace's memory. It was manipulation, making herself seem thoughtful, selfless, while actually rewriting Grace's presence in the house to suit her own purposes. Emma walked down the aisle as Flower Girl, scattering petals. She wore lavender. Her mother's sapphire bracelet gleamed on her wrist. Victoria appeared in ivory, simple, elegant, non-competitive with Grace's memory. Every choice calculated for maximum acceptance. Daniel beamed as they exchanged vows. Emma smiled, wanting desperately to believe in this new beginning. Helen watched from the back row and prayed she was wrong about everything. After the ceremony, the photographer gathered them for family photos. Perfect family shot, everyone smile. Daniel grinned, one arm around his new wife, one around his daughter. Emma smiled hopefully. Victoria smiled too. But if you looked closely at that photograph, if you studied Victoria's eyes, you would see they'd remain cold. Dead. The smile reached her lips, but went no further. She was already planning phase 2. Climax 1. The mask drops. The morning after the wedding, Daniel received an urgent call from his Singapore office. Emergency contract negotiations. He had to leave immediately. 2 weeks, he promised Emma over breakfast. "I will be back before you know it." Emma's face fell. "But you just got married." Victoria placed her hand on Daniel's arm, giving him that understanding smile he had come to rely on. "Sweetheart, your father's work is important. We will have a wonderful time together. Girl time." Daniel kissed Emma's forehead, then Victoria. His car arrived. As it disappeared down the long driveway, Victoria and Emma stood waving. 3 seconds after the car vanished from sight, everything changed. Victoria's hand, which had been holding Emma's, dropped away. Her posture shifted. The warmth drained from her face like water from a broken glass. Emma looked up at her new stepmother. The woman looking back was a stranger. Cold. Calculating. Completely devoid of the affection she had shown for 6 months. "Come with me." The voice was different too. Flat. Commanding. No trace of the gentle warmth Emma had learned to trust. Emma followed, confused and suddenly afraid, as Victoria led her upstairs to the master bedroom. With each step, Emma's instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Victoria opened the large closet, pulled something out, thrust it into Emma's small hands. "What is this?" Emma stared at the fabric. Adult-sized maid uniform. Black dress with white apron. Far too big for her 7-year-old frame. "Your new clothes." Victoria's voice was ice. "Playtime is over, Emma. Your father married me to bring discipline into your spoiled life. You have been coddled too long." Emma's heart pounded. This had to be a joke. Some kind of weird game. "What are you talking about? You will be helping maintain the household while your father is away." Starting today. No, Emma's voice shook. I do not believe you. I am calling Daddy. She reached for the phone on the nightstand. Victoria moved with frightening speed, grabbed the phone before Emma could touch it. You will not be needing this. Your father and I discussed this character-building exercise. Calling him would only disappoint him. Tears filled Emma's eyes. I want to talk to my dad. Victoria walked to her desk, opened a drawer, pulled out glossy brochures, tossed them onto the bed. Emma picked one up with trembling hands. The cover showed a stern gray building surrounded by snow-covered mountains. Le Chateau Academy, exclusive girls' boarding school. Switzerland. Your father and I reviewed these schools, Victoria said, her voice terrifyingly calm. He left the final decision to me. So you have a choice, Emma. You can stay here and learn some valuable life skills. Or you can pack for Switzerland, 6,000 miles away. Which will it be? Emma's world tilted. Her father would not. He could not. But the evidence was right there. Professional brochures, detailed information. It looked real, and Switzerland was so far away. I will stay, Emma whispered. Good choice. Victoria picked up the maid uniform, shoved it back into Emma's arms. Get changed. Your first lesson begins in 15 minutes. Guest bathrooms. Make them spotless. As Victoria walked to the door, she turned back. Her smile was nothing like the smile she had shown Daniel. This smile was sharp, cruel, victorious. This is my house now, Emma. In my house, you either work or you disappear. Your choice. The door closed. Emma stood alone in the massive bedroom, tears streaming down her face. The uniform felt rough against her skin as she changed with shaking hands. The fabric hung on her like a tent. She looked in the mirror and did not recognize the girl staring back. On her wrist, her mother's sapphire bracelet caught the morning light. Emma touched it with one small finger. Mommy, she whispered to the empty room. I am scared. No one answered. Daniel was 30,000 feet in the air, flying away from his daughter. Helen was downstairs, unaware of what had just happened. And Emma was alone with a woman who saw her not as a child to be loved, but as an obstacle to be removed. The nightmare had begun, and it would get so much worse before anyone realized the truth. The first day felt like drowning in slow motion. Emma's small hands, only 7 years old, worked the scrub brush across the marble floor. Back and forth, back and forth. The chemical cleaner burned her skin. Her fingers had already turned red. The delicate flesh, not meant for industrial strength solutions, meant to strip grime from stone. The maid uniform kept slipping off her shoulders. Emma had rolled the sleeves 6 times, but they still fell past her wrists. The hem dragged on the floor as she crawled on hands and knees, making her look even smaller than she was. Victoria stood in the doorway of the guest bathroom, arms crossed, watching with the detached interest of someone observing an insect under glass. You missed a spot behind the toilet. Do it again. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. My hands hurt. Then work faster. The morning had started at 6. Emma had been shaken awake in the small maid's quarters next to the laundry room where Victoria had moved her during the night. Her beautiful bedroom with its ocean view and walk-in closet was locked. You have not earned it yet, Victoria had said, pocketing the key. 6 in the morning, make Victoria's breakfast. Eggs Benedict, fresh squeezed orange juice, coffee at exactly 180 degrees, 7 in the morning. Clean all 5 bathrooms in the mansion. Scrub toilets, scour tubs, polish mirrors until they gleamed without a single streak. 10 in the morning, dust every surface in the living areas. Vacuum, mop, noon. Make lunch for Victoria and whatever friends she had invited over. 2 in the afternoon, laundry, ironing, folding. 5 in the evening, start dinner preparations. 8 at night, clean the kitchen, mop floors again because Victoria said they were not clean enough the first time. 10 at night, finally allowed to collapse on the narrow cot in the maid's quarters, too exhausted to even cry. This was Emma's life now, and it was only day 1. By day 3, Emma's hands had developed blisters that popped and bled. By day 5, she had lost weight, her already small frame becoming skeletal. By day 7, dark circles had formed under her eyes, making her look like a tiny ghost haunting her own home. And through it all, Victoria watched with cold satisfaction. Phase 1 was proceeding perfectly. Hook 10. The lunch party humiliation. Day 8 brought a new torture. Victoria was hosting in lunch for 6 wealthy friends on the terrace overlooking the Pacific. The women arrived in designer clothes and oversized sunglasses, air-kissing Victoria's cheeks and complimenting her on how well she had settled into her new life. Emma, wearing the oversized maid uniform, carried out trays of food from the kitchen. Cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off, shrimp cocktail, caprese salad, champagne that cost more per bottle than most families spent on groceries in a month. Emma's arms shook from the weight of the silver tray. She had not eaten a full meal in days. Victoria's new rule, clumsy servants do not deserve food. And Emma, exhausted and weak, was clumsy often. The women's conversation paused as Emma approached the table. 6 pairs of eyes turned to study the small figure in the ill-fitting uniform. "Victoria, darling," a red-haired woman said, her voice dripping with curiosity. "When you said you had hired new help, you did not mention she was so young." Victoria's smile was perfect, practiced. "This is actually my stepdaughter, Emma. She is learning the value of hard work. Character building, you understand." The women exchanged glances. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked intrigued by the unconventional approach to child-rearing. "How unusual," another woman commented. "Emma, pour the iced tea." Emma lifted the heavy crystal pitcher with both hands. Her arms trembled. She moved around the table, filling glasses, praying she would not spill. Praying Victoria would not have another reason to deny her dinner. As Emma reached for the fourth glass, the woman sitting there deliberately moved her hand over the rim at the last second. Tea splashed across the white linen tablecloth. "Oh, I am so sorry," Emma gasped, her voice thick with tears she refused to let fall. "How clumsy," the woman said, smirking. She had done it on purpose. Emma knew it. Everyone at the table knew it, but no one said anything. "Clean it up immediately," Victoria snapped. "Then go get fresh linens." And Emma? "Yes, ma'am? No lunch for you today? Clumsy girls do not eat." Emma hurried inside, face burning with humiliation. Behind her, she heard the women's laughter. Crystal clear, cruel. The sound of people who had never known hardship finding entertainment in a child's suffering. One voice carried more clearly than the rest. "I could never discipline my husband's child like that." "You are so brave, Victoria." Victoria sipped her champagne, basking in the admiration. "Daniel leaves all household matters to me. He is too busy saving the digital world to worry about properly raising his daughter." Inside the mansion, Emma stood in the hallway, hands pressed against the wall for support. Her stomach cramped with hunger. Her hands burned from the chemicals. Her heart ached with a loneliness so profound it felt like drowning. She touched the sapphire bracelet on her wrist. Her mother's bracelet, the only thing Victoria had not taken away. "Mommy," Emma whispered, "please help me. Please make Daddy come home." But Grace was 3 years dead, and Daniel was 6,000 miles away, completely oblivious to his daughter's nightmare. Scene 2, video call deception. That evening, Victoria set up her laptop on the kitchen counter. Daniel wanted to video call, his nightly check-in, the one thread connecting him to his daughter across the vast distance of the Pacific Ocean. Victoria looked at Emma. The child stood in the corner, still wearing the maid uniform, face pale with exhaustion and fear. "Your father wants to talk. Remember the rules." Emma nodded. She knew the rules. Victoria had made them crystal clear on day 1. Rule 1, smile. Rule 2, say everything is fine. Rule 3, never complain. Rule 4, if you break these rules, Switzerland. Tomorrow. The laptop screen came to life. Daniel's face appeared, tired but smiling. "There is my girl. How are you, sweetheart?" Victoria stood behind the laptop, just out of camera range. Her hand moved to her throat in a slicing motion. A silent reminder, one word out of place and Emma would be on a plane to a boarding school 6,000 miles away. "I am fine, Dad." Emma's voice sounded strangled even to her own ears. She tried to smile, but it felt like her face might crack. "Are you and Victoria having fun?" Victoria's eyes narrowed. Her hand formed into a fist. A warning. "Yes, we are cooking together." The lie tasted like poison. They were not cooking together. Emma was cooking alone while Victoria supervised and criticized and found reasons to deny her food. "That is wonderful." Daniel's face lit up with genuine joy. "I will be home in 9 days. I have got something special for you from Singapore." 9 days, it felt like an eternity. 9 more days of chemical burns and hunger. and sleeping on a cot in the laundry room. 9 more days of being invisible in her own home. Victoria stepped into frame, all warmth and affection. We miss you so much, darling. I miss you both too. The connection here is not great, but I just wanted to see Emma's face before bed. She is such a help, Victoria cooed. We are bonding beautifully. After Daniel disconnected, Victoria closed the laptop. The mask of warmth evaporated instantly. Go finish the kitchen. Your bedroom stays locked. Maybe in another week you will have earned the privilege of sleeping in your own bed. Emma scrubbed the kitchen counters at midnight, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Through the window she could see the ocean, moonlight dancing on the waves. Beautiful, peaceful. A world away from the hell her life had become. Helen Carter found Emma at 1 in the morning, curled on the floor of the laundry room crying. The child's hands were bleeding from chemical burns. Her face was gaunt with hunger and exhaustion. Oh, sweet girl. Helen knelt, pulling the first aid kit from the cabinet. Let me see your hands. Emma held them out. The blisters had popped. Raw flesh showed through where the skin had peeled away. Why does Daddy not believe me? Emma sobbed. I tried to tell him before he left, but Victoria always interrupts. Helen's hands shook as she wrapped Emma's tiny fingers in gauze. Every maternal instinct screamed at her to call Daniel, to call the police, to do something, anything, to end this child's suffering. But her phone sat in her pocket, heavy with impossible weight. That morning, Victoria had cornered Helen in the upstairs hallway. Her voice had been pleasant. Her words had been poison. I know about Miguel, undocumented, waiting on a work visa that Daniel is sponsoring. One call from me to immigration, and your nephew is deported within 24 hours. Back to Guatemala where the gangs are waiting. Do we understand each other, Mrs. Carter? Helen had understood perfectly. Now, looking at Emma's tear-stained face, at the injuries on her small hands, at the fear in her eyes, Helen made a choice that would haunt her forever. I am sorry, Emma. I am so, so sorry. She left the 7-year-old alone in the laundry room, left her to curl into a ball on the floor, left her to cry herself to sleep on cold tile because Helen's own nephew's life hung in the balance. It was the kind of impossible choice that breaks people. Save one child by abandoning another. Helen had chosen blood over duty, and she would carry that guilt for the rest of her life. But redemption was coming, sooner than Helen knew, in the form of a man who had made different choices when faced with similar impossibilities. A man named Ryan Blake. Act 2.2, Ryan's arrival day 10. A security van pulled up the long driveway to the Hayes mansion. Ryan Blake climbed out, surveying the property with professional eyes. 15,000 square feet, clifftop location, multiple entry points. Standard wealthy client security nightmare. But Ryan was not thinking about perimeter defense as he approached the front door. He was thinking about the call that had brought him here. Daniel Hayes needed a comprehensive security system installed before returning from Singapore. Standard job, good money, nothing unusual. Except everything was about to become very unusual. Victoria answered the door. She was perfection itself, hair and makeup flawless, designer clothes, warm smile, the picture of a happy newlywed settling into her new home. Mr. Blake, thank you for coming on such short notice. Mrs. Hayes, my pleasure. She led him through the mansion, explaining what cameras she wanted where. Living room, kitchen, hallways, even the bedrooms. I want to feel completely safe, she said. A woman alone so much of the time while Daniel travels. Ryan nodded, taking notes. But his attention was not on Victoria's words. His attention was on the details she was not mentioning. Family photos had been removed from the walls, replaced with sterile modern art. No child's artwork on the refrigerator. No toys visible anywhere. The house felt more like a hotel than a home. Cold, empty, wrong. And then he saw her. A small figure in an oversized maid uniform, mopping the marble floor near the staircase. Head down, shoulders hunched, moving slowly like every action caused pain. 7 years old, maybe 8. Definitely not a maid. Ryan's blood ran cold. He had seen this before, different house, different child, same horror. He was 9 years old again. Foster home in Tucson. Another kid named Sarah, 6 years old. Their foster mother made Sarah sleep in the garage, made her do all the housework, beat her when she was too slow. By the time anyone noticed, Sarah was in the hospital with pneumonia and malnutrition. Ryan had sworn that day, watching ambulances and police cars and social workers swarm the house. Never again, never again would he see a child in danger and do nothing. "Who was that?" he asked casually, nodding toward the small figure. Victoria's voice did not change. "Oh, that is my stepdaughter, Emma. She is helping out while her father travels. Character building exercise." Everything in Ryan's training, everything in his gut, screamed, "This is wrong, very wrong." But he said nothing. Not yet. He needed to be smart, needed evidence, needed to build a case that would stick. Hook 12. The first connection. While Victoria took a phone call in another room, Ryan walked over to Emma. She looked up, terrified. Eyes too big in her thin face. Bruises on her arms, badly concealed by the long sleeves of the uniform. "Hey there, what is your name?" Emma glanced toward where Victoria had gone. "I am not supposed to talk to anyone." Ryan crouched to her level. Non-threatening, gentle. "I am Ryan. I am installing security cameras to keep your house safe. Have you worked here long?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I do not work here. This is my house." The words hit Ryan like a punch to the chest. This is my house. Not I live here. Not my dad owns this house. My house. The possessive statement of a child who understood her home had been stolen from her. "How long has your dad been gone?" Emma counted on her small fingers. 10 days. He comes back in 8 more days. "And Victoria has you cleaning while he is gone?" Emma nodded, then glanced nervously toward Victoria's voice in the other room. Ryan pulled out his phone, opened the Notes app, typed quickly. "I am going to help you, but we have to be careful. Do you understand?" He showed Emma the screen. Her eyes widened. She read the words twice as if unable to believe them, then nodded, a tiny spark of hope igniting behind the fear. Ryan deleted the note immediately, smiled at her, stood up as Victoria's heels clicked back toward them. "Cute kid," Ryan said to Victoria. "Daniel must be a great dad." Victoria's smile was tight, brittle. He tries. That night in his hotel room, Ryan made a series of phone calls. First to his former partner on the police force, Detective Maria Santos. "Maria, I need a favor. Background check on Victoria Monroe. Married Daniel Hayes 3 weeks ago." "What is this about?" "Suspected child abuse. I need ammunition before I go to CPS. I will run her. Give me 24 hours. Next, Ryan opened his laptop and began redesigning the security system. Victoria wanted cameras everywhere. She wanted to watch Emma, to monitor her movements, to maintain control, but Ryan was going to give her something different. He was going to build Victoria a cage, and she would walk right into it. Scene 4, Ryan's plan. The security system Ryan had designed was a masterpiece of deception. To Victoria, it looked exactly like what she had requested. Cameras in every room, motion sensors, remote access via smartphone app, state-of-the-art technology that would let her monitor the house from anywhere. What Victoria did not know was that Ryan had built in blind spots, carefully calculated moments and locations where the cameras appeared to be recording but were not, where Emma could exist without being watched, where Helen could help without being caught. The laundry room between 10 and 10:30 each morning, no coverage. The east hallway from 2 to 2:15 each afternoon. Camera on a 15-second delay. The kitchen pantry, no camera at all. Victoria had specifically requested full coverage. Ryan had told her there was a wiring issue, would take another week to fix. She had accepted the explanation. But the most important addition was the one Victoria did not know about. In her private study, the room she had specifically said must have no camera, Ryan installed a hidden unit inside the smoke detector housing. Victoria wanted privacy for her phone calls, her secret communications, her planning sessions with whoever D was in her contacts. Ryan was going to record every single word. By day 12, the system was fully operational. Ryan handed Victoria the master access codes, showed her how to monitor everything from her phone. She was delighted, completely unaware that Ryan had master administrator access she could not override. That certain cameras stored footage locally rather than uploading to the cloud where she could delete it. That he was building a case that would destroy her. Hook 13, the teacher's call. Day 13 brought a new complication. Emma's teacher, Ms. Winters, called the house. Victoria answered, instantly switching into concerned mother mode. Mrs. Hayes? This is Lisa Winters, Emma's teacher. I am concerned about some changes I have noticed in Emma. Victoria's mind raced. CPS involvement would ruin everything. What kind of changes? Her grades are dropping. She is withdrawn from her friends. And I have noticed bruises on her arms. I wanted to check that everything is okay at home. Thank you for your concern, Miss Winters. Victoria's voice dripped with fake worry. Daniel and I have noticed changes too. Blended families can be so challenging for children. Emma is still adjusting to sharing her father's attention. I understand, but these changes seem more serious than typical adjustment issues. We are actually looking into therapy options, Victoria interrupted smoothly. Our family doctor suggested it might be a response to all the changes in her life. New stepmother, Daniel's frequent travel, very common in these situations. Ms. Winters hesitated. I would still like to schedule a parent conference. Daniel is traveling for business right now. Perhaps when he returns in a week. After hanging up, Victoria found Emma in the kitchen, washing dishes from lunch. Her voice dropped to a deadly whisper. Your teacher called. You are drawing attention to us, Emma. Fix it, or boarding school becomes our only option. Do you understand? Emma nodded, hands shaking in the soapy water. Victoria walked away, already calculating. The teacher was a problem. The housekeeper was a problem. And Emma was becoming defiant. Too many cracks in the facade. Time to accelerate the timeline. Get Emma on a plane to Switzerland before Daniel returned, before anyone could interfere. She pulled out her phone, texted Dominic. Need to move up phase 2. Target departure in 5 days instead of 8. Confirm boarding school can accommodate early arrival. Response came within seconds. Confirmed, $3,000 rush fee. Wire today. Victoria smiled. It would be worth every penny. Acts 2.3. Building the case. Day 14. Ryan sat in his hotel room, walls covered with printed photographs and notes. A murder board for a crime still in progress. He had been documenting everything for 4 days now. The security footage told a story of systematic abuse. The hidden cameras captured what Victoria thought no one would ever see. Victoria slapping Emma's hands when she dropped a dish. 2:34 p.m., day 11. Victoria screaming at Emma for 30 minutes about a wrinkled tablecloth. 5:18 p.m., day 12. Victoria forcing Emma to clean bathrooms on hands and knees for 3 consecutive hours. Day 13, morning. But the worst footage came from the study. From the camera Victoria did not know existed. Ryan had captured her phone calls with Dominic. All of them. Yes, Dominic, everything on schedule. Hayes completely under control. The brat is becoming a problem, though. The words were clear, unmistakable. Victoria discussing Emma like she was an obstacle to be removed rather than a child to be cared for. No, I have it handled. 5 more days and she will be on a plane to Switzerland. The school payment is confirmed. Once she is gone, I file for divorce. Judge Williams will give me half. Ryan's hands clenched into fists as he listened. It was not just abuse. It was a calculated con. Victoria had married Daniel not for love, but for money, and Emma was collateral damage. The next recording was even more damning. 40 million minimum. Just like we planned. This is our biggest score yet. No, he has no idea. The prenup I signed is fake. My lawyer has the real one. Ryan called Detective Santos. I have got enough for arrest warrants. Child abuse, fraud, possibly conspiracy to commit murder. When does the husband return? 5 days, but I do not think Emma has 5 days. Victoria is getting more violent. She is spiraling, planning to ship Emma out of the country. Bring me everything you have. I will start the paperwork. But Ryan, we need to move carefully. Woman like this, she will have contingencies. Lawyers, money hidden in places we cannot touch. We get one shot at this. Ryan knew she was right, but Emma did not have time for careful. Hook 14, Victoria's call to Dominic, day 15. Ryan was installing the final camera near Victoria's study when he heard her voice through the not-quite-closed door. She was on the phone, speaking freely, believing herself alone and unmonitored. Yes, Dominic, phase 2 is accelerating. Emma leaves for Switzerland in 3 days. Ryan pressed record on his phone. Video and audio. Backup evidence in case something happened to the hidden camera. The boarding school thinks she is coming voluntarily for enrichment. They have no idea her father does not know. Dominic's voice came through the speaker, tinny but clear. What about the housekeeper? She is a liability. I have leverage. Her nephew is undocumented. She will stay quiet. And the security guy you hired? Just a contractor. Installs cameras and leaves. He is nobody. Ryan's jaw tightened. Nobody. He had been called worse. Victoria continued. Once Emma is gone, I trigger phase 3. Tell Daniel she ran away, that she could not handle having a stepmother. By the time he figures out where she is, I will have filed for divorce, claimed he abandoned me. Judge Williams owes you a favor. He will give me half of everything. And if Hayes fights it, then we move to phase 4. Silence. Heavy. Ominous. You mean, Dominic's voice was cold, accidents happen. Wealthy men die all the time. Heart attacks, car crashes. Tragic. Victoria laughed. It is not going to come to that. Daniel is too broken to fight. He will roll over. Give me whatever I want just to make it go away. I hope you are right, sister, because I am tired of these long cons. 40 million is enough to retire. But if we have to do this the hard way, we do it the hard way. After Victoria ended the call, Ryan stood motionless in the hallway. His hands shook with rage. They were not just abusing Emma, they were planning to murder Daniel if necessary. This had escalated beyond Child Protective Services, beyond divorce court. This was organized crime, conspiracy, fraud, attempted murder. Ryan called Santos again. This time his voice was urgent. We need FBI. Now, scene 6. The evidence mounts. Over the next 48 hours, Ryan documented everything. Day 16 brought video of Victoria grabbing Emma's arm hard enough to leave perfect fingerprint bruises. The child had dropped a glass of water. Victoria's response was instantaneous violence. That same day, Ryan discovered Victoria had drained $300,000 from Daniel's personal accounts, offshore transfers to banks in the Cayman Islands. The digital trail was clear once you knew where to look. Day 17. Ryan hacked Victoria's laptop while she was out, found emails going back 18 months, communications with Dominic detailing their research on Daniel, his net worth, his vulnerabilities, his predictable travel schedule, found documents about previous marks. Harold Winters, Gregory Chen, both dead within months of marrying Victoria, both leaving her millions, found the fake prenup. The real prenup showed Victoria entitled to nothing in case of divorce. But the fake prenup, the one she planned to present in court, gave her half of everything acquired during the marriage. Ryan printed everything, organized it, built a timeline that showed premeditation, planning, criminal conspiracy spanning a decade. His hotel room looked like FBI headquarters. Evidence everywhere. Documents, photos, video files backed up to 3 separate servers. He was ready to bring Victoria down. But Emma was running out of time. Hook 15. Emma's breaking point. Day 18. Emma had been Victoria's prisoner for 16 days. She had lost 12 pounds from her already small frame. Her hands were covered in bandages from chemical burns and cuts. Dark circles under her eyes made her look like a tiny ghost. But it was not the physical abuse that finally broke her. It was the vase. Victoria had sent Emma to clean the private study, the room Emma had been forbidden to enter for weeks. Inside was beautiful and terrible. Expensive artwork, crystal sculptures, and on Victoria's desk a $5,000 crystal vase. Emma dusted carefully. So carefully, but she was weak from hunger and exhaustion. Her hand, wrapped in gauze from yesterday's burns, slipped. The vase teetered. Emma reached for it. Her fingers only pushed it further. Time slowed as the crystal fell, hit the hardwood floor, shattered into 1,000 pieces. The sound brought Victoria running. What did you break? Emma stared at the shattered crystal, tears already streaming down her face. I am sorry. It slipped. I am so sorry. That vase was worth $5,000. Do you have any idea how much money that is? Emma knelt, trying to pick up the pieces with her bandaged hands. Blood seeped through the gauze where sharp edges cut deeper. You are useless. Completely useless. Victoria grabbed Emma's arm. Her fingers dug into flesh hard enough to bruise bone. She dragged the 7-year-old toward the door. Down the hallway. toward the basement stairs. "Let me go," Emma screamed. "You are hurting me. Maybe a little time in the dark will teach you to be more careful." "No, please. I am scared of the dark." But Victoria was beyond listening, beyond caring. The mask had fallen completely away. This was who she really was. Not a stepmother, not even human, just a predator disposing of an inconvenient obstacle. She shoved Emma down the basement stairs. Emma tumbled. Her small body hit the third step with a sickening thud. Pain exploded in her head. The world spun. Victoria marched down the stairs, grabbed Emma's arm again, dragged her to the storage room at the back of the basement. Windowless, pitch black, the place Emma feared most. "No, please! Mommy! Daddy!" Emma's screams echoed off concrete walls as Victoria shoved her inside and slammed the door. The lock clicked with finality. Darkness absolute. Emma's hands found the walls. Cold, rough, she was trapped. "Help! Somebody help me!" Her voice broke. Voice became sobs, became whimpers. Upstairs, Victoria poured herself a glass of wine. The child's screaming was muffled by the basement door, barely audible. She turned on music to drown it out completely. But in a security van parked down the street, Ryan Blake heard every scream through the hidden microphone system. He watched on a tablet as Victoria locked a 7-year-old child in a pitch-black basement storage room. He was already moving, already calling Helen, already breaking every protocol he had established about moving carefully. Careful could wait. Emma needed him now. Climax 2, the rescue. Ryan burst through the back door he had deliberately left unsecured during installation. Helen ran from the kitchen, her face white with terror. "Thank God," I heard her screaming. "Where?" "Basement storage room." Victoria locked her in. They raced downstairs. Emma's screams had gone silent. That was somehow worse than the noise. Ryan tried the door. Locked. Industrial deadbolt. He pulled out his lockpick set, hands steady despite the rage coursing through his veins. "Emma, it is Ryan. I am getting you out." A small voice from inside, barely audible. "Ryan, Mrs. Carter, stand back from the door, sweetie." 30 seconds later, the lock clicked open. Ryan pulled the door wide. Emma stood in the darkness, face streaked with tears and blood from where she had hit her head on the stairs. She blinked in the sudden light like a creature emerging from a cave. Helen dropped to her knees, gathering Emma into her arms. "Oh, my poor child. Let me see." Blood matted Emma's hair. A purple bruise was already forming on her forehead. Her hands were bleeding through the bandages. Fingerprint bruises covered both arms. Ryan pulled out his phone, documented every injury with photos and video, time-stamped, geotagged, evidence that would stand up in any court. "We need to call Daniel," Helen said. "Now." "And tell him what?" Ryan's voice was hard. "Victoria will say Emma is clumsy, defiant. She will show them the fake boarding school papers Daniel supposedly signed. It will be our word against hers. Then what do? We call Daniel, show him everything. Let him decide. But we do it from somewhere she cannot monitor. Somewhere safe. Ryan's guest room at a hotel 5 miles away. The only space in Emma's life that Victoria did not control. Hook 16, the call to Daniel. 3:47 in the morning, Singapore time. Daniel's phone rang, dragging him from fitful sleep. "Mrs. Carter, is everything okay?" Helen's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "No, Mr. Hayes, everything is not okay. Your wife has been abusing Emma every day since you left." "What? That is ridiculous." Today she shoved Emma down the stairs, hit her, and locked her in a pitch-black storage room for 3 hours. Helen's voice broke on the last words. "Your daughter has bruises, cuts, chemical burns on her hands. And I stood by and let it happen because Victoria threatened to have my nephew deported." Silence. Long, heavy. "Put Ryan on." Ryan took the phone. His voice was calm, professional, but underneath ran currents of barely controlled rage. "Mr. Hayes, Ryan Blake, your security consultant. I have video footage, audio recordings, photographs. Everything Mrs. Carter said is true. And it is worse than she knows." "What do you mean worse?" "Your wife is running a fraud operation with her brother Dominic. They have done this before. Marry wealthy men, your eliminate children, steal money, disappear. I have recordings of her discussing plans to divorce you and take half your fortune. Possibly recordings of conspiracy to commit murder." Another long silence. When Daniel spoke again, his voice was unrecognizable. Cold. Lethal. The voice of a father who had just realized he had failed his daughter catastrophically. Send me everything, every file, every photo, every recording. Now. Already uploading to a secure server. I am getting on my plane. I will be home in 12 hours. Keep Emma away from Victoria. Do not confront her directly. I will handle this myself. Daniel paused. When he spoke again, his voice cracked with emotion. And Ryan, thank you. Thank you for protecting my daughter when I could not. After the call ended, Emma was transferred to Ryan's hotel room. Helen stayed with her while Ryan returned to the mansion to maintain the illusion that nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The evidence was uploaded. The trap was set. And Daniel Hayes was coming home with the fury of a father who had finally opened his eyes. Hook 17, Victoria's discovery. Victoria paced her study at 4 in the morning, unable to sleep. Something felt wrong. The house was too quiet. She pulled up the camera feeds on her tablet, checked each room systematically. Emma's locked bedroom, empty. Laundry room, empty. Maid's quarters, empty. Basement storage room, the door stood open, unlocked. Where the hell was the girl? Victoria tried calling Helen, no answer. Called Ryan. Voicemail. Panic began to creep in, the kind of panic that came when a perfect plan started to unravel. She opened her laptop, checked her offshore accounts. The money was still there. 300,000 safely transferred. Checked her emails. Nothing alarming. The boarding school in Switzerland confirmed Emma's early arrival, 3 days from now. But Emma was gone, and that meant someone had helped her, which meant someone knew. Victoria poured a drink with shaking hands, tried to think, to plan, to regain control. Her phone buzzed. Text from Dominic. Something wrong? You are not checking in on schedule. Victoria stared at the message. Should she tell him? Admit that things were falling apart? Dominic did not tolerate failure. He had made that clear with previous partners who had made mistakes. She typed, all fine. Target still on schedule. But it was a lie, and Victoria was running out of time to make it true. She booked a flight to the Cayman Islands for tomorrow night. Emergency extraction. If this went sideways, she needed an exit strategy. But first, she needed to find Emma. Climax 3, the home invasion. 4 in the morning, Ryan, Helen, and Emma asleep in the hotel room. Emma finally resting, Helen in a chair beside her, Ryan on the couch. The phone call came at 4:15. Building security. Mr. Blake, we have a situation. Woman at the front desk demanding to know your room number. Says she is your client's wife. Seems agitated. Do not give her my information. Call the police if she will not leave. But Victoria was not at the hotel. That was misdirection. While Ryan was focused on the false alarm, Victoria was breaking into her own house, smashing the conservatory window, hunting for clues about where Emma had gone. She moved through the dark mansion, rage and panic driving her, called Emma's name, searched rooms, found Helen's cell phone charger still plugged in upstairs. The woman had left in a hurry. Victoria pulled up Ryan's contact information, found his business address, his hotel listed as temporary residence during the security installation project. She smiled, grabbed her purse. Inside was a syringe, filled with a sedative strong enough to drop a grown man. She had bought it weeks ago. Insurance, just in case the plan required improvisation. 20 minutes later, Victoria arrived at Ryan's hotel, bypassed the front desk by following another guest through the side entrance, found his room number through the partially open guest registry binder at an empty workstation. She stood outside room 314, knew Emma was inside, knew this was her last chance to regain control. Victoria picked the simple hotel lock in under a minute. The door swung open silently. Inside, Ryan slept on the couch, Helen in the chair, Emma in the bed. Victoria moved toward the bed, syringe in hand, one injection and Emma would be unconscious. Easy to carry out, easy to disappear. But Helen had developed a mother's instinct for danger. Her eyes opened, saw Victoria's silhouette in the doorway. Emma! Helen's scream shattered the silence. Ryan jolted awake, saw Victoria, saw the syringe, understood instantly. He moved fast, grabbed Victoria's wrist. The syringe fell, rolled under the bed. They struggled. Victoria was stronger than she looked. Fueled by desperation and rage, she raked her nails across Ryan's face. 4 deep scratches drew blood, kicked him in the ribs, broke free and ran for the door. But hotel security was already arriving. Someone had called about the screaming. Police sirens in the distance. Victoria froze in the doorway, calculated her options in seconds. All of them bad. She looked back at Emma, small and terrified in Helen's arms. "This is not over," Victoria hissed. "You think you have won? You have no idea what Dominic will do when he finds out." Then she ran, down the hallway, down the stairs, out into the pre-dawn darkness. But Ryan had already forwarded all evidence to the FBI, had called Detective Santos, had set wheels in motion that Victoria could not stop. Hook 18, end of part 2. Police found Victoria 3 hours later at LAX, trying to board a flight to the Cayman Islands under a fake name. FBI agents were waiting. They had been tracking her movement since Ryan's call. But as they handcuffed her and read her rights, Victoria smiled. Because across the country, her brother Dominic received a single text. "Sister caught, execute contingency plan, target is the father." Dominic Monroe stepped out of the shadows, made a phone call, hired someone who specialized in making problems disappear. Someone who would be in California within hours. Daniel Hayes was flying home to save his daughter. But he did not know he had just become a target. The real nightmare was just beginning. The helicopter descended through morning fog onto the clifftop helipad. 6:47 a.m. Daniel Hayes had been in the air for 12 hours, watching security footage on repeat until his eyes burned and his soul felt scraped raw. His daughter, his baby girl, 7 years old, beaten, starved, terrorized, and he had been blind to all of it. The helicopter touched down. Daniel stepped out, jaw set, eyes hard as stone. He looked like a man capable of murder. Perhaps he was. Perhaps any father would be, given what he had seen. Ryan Blake waited at the helipad entrance. His face showed fresh scratches from Victoria's nails, battle scars earned protecting Emma. "Mr. Hayes," Ryan extended his hand. Daniel gripped it hard. "Where is Emma?" "Hospital. Helen is with her. Minor concussion, dehydration, malnutrition. The doctors say she will recover physically." The word physically hung in the air like smoke. They both knew the psychological damage would take years to heal, if it ever did. And Victoria? Police custody. But there is a problem. Daniel's expression darkened further. "What problem?" "Her brother Dominic. We have evidence he is in California. Intercepted a call to Victoria's phone an hour ago. He said, and I quote, 'You failed, sister, but I will not. Hayes will pay.'" Daniel's jaw clenched. Let him come. But Ryan saw something in Daniel's eyes that made him uneasy. Not fear, something colder, more dangerous. The look of a man who had lost everything once and would burn the world down before losing anything again. Malibu General Hospital, pediatric wing. Daniel pushed open the door to room 312 with trembling hands. Emma lay in the hospital bed, impossibly small. White sheets, white walls, the blue hospital gown drowning her thin frame, bandages on her hands, bruise on her forehead, IV drip in her arm feeding nutrients back into her starved body. Helen Carter stood from the bedside chair. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mr. Hayes, she has been asking for you." Daniel approached slowly, like Emma might vanish if he moved too fast, like this might be another nightmare in a long series of waking nightmares. He touched her small hand gently. So gently, afraid he might break her. Emma's eyes fluttered open. "Daddy, I am here, baby girl. I am here, say." Emma's face crumpled. The brave mask she had worn for 18 days finally shattered. She had been so strong, so resilient. Now she could finally break. "I tried to tell you." Her voice was a broken whisper. "But you did not believe me." Daniel's tears fell freely. No pride left, no dignity, just a father drowning in guilt and grief. I know, and I am so sorry. I failed you, Emma. I failed to protect you, to listen to you. I am so sorry." He carefully climbed into the hospital bed beside her, gathered his daughter into his arms, let her cry into his chest, let her small body shake with sobs that had been building for weeks. "I will never leave you again," Daniel whispered into her hair. Never, I promise. I swear on your mother's memory, I will never fail you again. Emma's small fingers found the sapphire bracelet on her wrist. Mommy would be proud of you, Daddy. You came back. The words broke something in Daniel, something that needed to be broken. The wall he had built around his grief, the distance he had maintained from his daughter, all of it crumbled. For the first time since Grace died, Daniel allowed himself to fully feel the pain, the loss, the love. And Emma, feeling her father truly present for the first time in 3 years, began to heal. 2 hours later, County Jail, Interview Room B. Bulletproof glass separated Daniel from the woman he had married 3 weeks ago. Victoria sat in an orange jumpsuit, makeup-free, hair unwashed, finally visible. The real Victoria. No masks, no performances, just a predator caught in a trap of her own making. She smiled when Daniel entered. Still playing games. Daniel, thank God. There has been a terrible misunderstanding. Stop. Daniel's voice was quiet, deadly calm. I have watched the footage, all of it. Every time you hit her, every threat, every moment of torture you put my 7-year-old daughter through. Victoria's smile faltered. I heard the calls with Dominic, the plan to take my money, send Emma away, possibly kill me if I became inconvenient. The smile died completely. Victoria's mask cracked down the middle. I know about your previous husbands, Harold Winters, Gregory Chen, both dead within months of marrying you, both conveniently leaving you millions. The police are exhuming bodies as we speak. Victoria leaned forward. The woman looking back at Daniel now bore no resemblance to the person he had married. This woman was cold, empty, reptilian. You were easy, she said flatly. Grieving widower, desperate for help with your brat. Pathetic. Rich, but pathetic. Daniel did not flinch. Was any of it real? She laughed. Cruel, mocking. The proposal, the wedding, the I love yous, all scripted. Dominic and I have been running this con for 10 years. You are just another mark, another payday. And Emma? Victoria's face twisted with genuine hatred. That little brat ruined everything. If she had just done what she was told, gotten on the plane to Switzerland, this would have worked perfectly. But no, she had to be difficult, had to force me to use harsher methods. Rage built in Daniel's chest like a living thing, but he kept his voice level. My legal team prepared divorce papers. Due to fraud, you get nothing. Zero. Victoria leaned back, confidence returning. I will fight it. California is community property. I will get my half. Not when fraud is involved. Not when there is video evidence of systematic child abuse. Not when you are facing federal charges. As if on cue, the door opened. 2 FBI agents in dark suits entered. Victoria Stern, we have additional charges. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, racketeering under RICO statutes. You are being transferred to federal custody. Victoria's composure finally shattered. You cannot prove any of that. Daniel stood, looked down at the woman who had nearly destroyed his family. We have 15 years of communications between you and Dominic, bank records, testimonies from previous victims who survived your cons. You are done. He walked to the door, paused, turned back. Victoria screamed after him, Dominic will kill you. He does not let people get away with ruining our plans. Daniel's response was cold. Let him try. But Daniel did not know how serious that threat was. Did not know Dominic Monroe was already in California, already making arrangements, already hiring someone who specialized in making problems disappear permanently. Act 3.2, Dominic's Gambit. That afternoon, Daniel brought Emma home from the hospital. She clutched his hand so tightly her knuckles turned white as they walked through the front door. The mansion felt different now. Helen had worked through the night, removing every trace of Victoria's presence. Grace's paintings restored to the walls. Family photos back in their places. Emma's bedroom unlocked, cleaned, filled with fresh flowers. Welcome home, sweet girl. Helen smiled through tears. Emma explored her restored room cautiously, touching her toys like old friends she had feared were lost forever. Her bed with the ocean view, her books, her art supplies, everything exactly as it had been before Victoria. But Emma could not sleep there that night. The memories were too fresh. She slept in Daniel's bed, curled against his chest, waking every hour to make sure he was still there. At 2 in the morning, Daniel's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Daniel Hayes, speaking. The voice was smooth, cold, professional. My name is Dominic Monroe. I believe you have met my sister. Daniel's blood turned to ice. He slipped out of bed carefully, not waking Emma, and stepped onto the terrace. What do you want? Justice? You ruined a very profitable operation. Cost me millions, but I am a reasonable man. I will give you a choice. I do not negotiate with criminals. Dominic laughed. Even when your daughter's life is the bargaining chip? Daniel's hand tightened on the phone until his knuckles went white. Right now I am watching your house. I see Emma's bedroom window. Sweet little thing, holding a stuffed bunny. Daniel looked up. Emma was indeed visible through the window, clutching her favorite stuffed animal even in sleep. You have 24 hours to transfer $50 million to an account I will provide. If you do not, or if you call police, accidents happen to little girls. They fall from cliffs. They drown in pools. They get hit by cars. Tragic. Hook 20. The plan. Daniel immediately called Ryan and Detective Santos to the house. They gathered in Daniel's office, door locked, voices low. He wants $50 million or he will hurt Emma. Ryan leaned forward. We need to use this. Set a trap. Detective Santos nodded. Agreed, but we need Emma safe first. Secure location. Daniel shook his head. He is watching the house. If Emma leaves, he will know we are planning something. Ryan thought for a moment. What if Emma does not leave, but we make him think she does? The plan formed quickly. Child actress named Sophie, 12 years old, similar build to Emma. She would arrive at the house publicly. Emma would supposedly leave for a safe house, but actually go to the panic room in the East Wing. Sophie would wear Emma's clothes, act as bait. Dominic would attempt kidnapping. FBI would capture him. Daniel hesitated. He is dangerous. What if something goes wrong? Ryan's voice was firm. Sophie's parents are former Secret Service. She has been in protection training since she was 5, and she will have 15 undercover agents within 20 feet at all times. Do it, Daniel decided. That evening, the plan went into motion. Black SUV arrived at the mansion. Sophie, wearing Emma's signature purple jacket and holding the stuffed bunny, climbed inside with 2 bodyguards who were actually undercover FBI. From a hidden camera across the street, they watched Dominic's rental car start its engine. He was following. 7 p.m. The SUV drove to Dr. Chen's office where Emma had therapy appointments. Predictable routine, easy to ambush. Sophie went inside with her guards. Dominic's car parked down the block, waiting. 15 FBI agents positioned themselves. Gardeners, dog walkers, parents waiting in cars, all armed, all ready. 45 minutes later, Sophie emerged from the office. The SUV pulled up to collect her. Dominic's car suddenly accelerated, blocked the SUV. 2 men jumped out, running towards Sophie. FBI! Hands up! Every civilian in the area drew weapons, surrounded Dominic's team. Dominic's face showed shock, then rage, then cold calculation. He slowly raised his hands, but as agents approached, he smiled. You think this is over? I have insurance. Detective Santos stepped forward. What insurance? Dominic pulled out his phone with one hand. Agents allowed it, thinking he was surrendering. He hit send on a pre-written text. I hired someone to watch the house while I was gone. If I did not check in every 30 minutes, they were supposed to take care of Emma. I just sent the go-ahead signal. Daniel, listening via earpiece from his office, felt his blood freeze. Emma! Daniel raced through the mansion, Ryan beside him, both men armed. Helen had Emma in the panic room. They should be safe. Should be, but the hired killer was already inside. Had been inside for hours. Hiding, waiting. A woman in her 40s with dead eyes and a gun in her hand. She found Helen first, standing guard outside the panic room door like a lioness protecting her cub. Where is the girl? Helen stood her ground despite the gun pointed at her chest. Not here. The woman raised the gun higher. Do not make this difficult. Helen's voice shook but held firm. I have already lost too much in my life. I will not lose that child. They stared at each other. 2 women, one protecting, one destroying. Then crash. Front door burst open. Daniel and Ryan charged in. The woman turned, guns swinging toward Daniel. Ryan fired first, his licensed concealed carry weapon. Shot to the woman's shoulder. She dropped. Gun clattered away. Screamed in pain. Daniel ran past, took stairs 3 at a time. "Emma! Daddy!" Her small voice from behind the panic room door. Helen unlocked it with shaking hands. Emma burst out, launched herself into Daniel's arms. He sank to the floor, held her, sobbed openly. "You are okay. You are okay. I have got you." Emma pulled back, touched his face with her small hands. "You came back. You always come back now." Daniel kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her hands. "Always. I will always come back. That is a promise I will never break again." 2 weeks later, federal courthouse, downtown Los Angeles. Victoria's trial was swift. The video evidence was overwhelming, Ryan's documentation meticulous. Testimony after testimony buried her. Helen described finding Emma locked in the basement. Ryan showed the recordings of Victoria discussing murder with Dominic. Emma's teacher testified about the visible decline in the child's health and behavior. But the most damning testimony came from James Winters, son of Victoria's first victim. "My father died 2 months after marrying her," James said, voice thick with emotion. "She inherited $12 million. I always suspected but could not prove it. Until now." His eyes met Victoria's across the courtroom. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for finally giving my father justice." The jury deliberated 90 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing: 15 years federal prison for Victoria, 25 years for Dominic, with additional charges for conspiracy to commit murder and attempted kidnapping. The hired woman received 10 years as part of a plea deal where she testified against Dominic. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Daniel and Emma. "Mr. Hayes, what do you want people to know?" Daniel looked down at Emma. She nodded. They had prepared for this moment together. He spoke directly to the camera. "Child abuse happens in wealthy homes too, behind perfect facades. The signs are always there. We just have to be willing to see them. I almost lost my daughter because I was too focused on work, too trusting, too blind." His voice strengthened. "If you are a parent, listen to your children. Really listen. They will tell you when something is wrong. If you are a child like Emma was, keep trying. Keep telling people. Keep fighting. Eventually someone will believe you." Emma added in her small but steady voice, "And if you are someone like Mrs. Carter or Mr. Ryan, do not be afraid to help. You might save someone's life." 6 months passed like water over stones, slowly smoothing the sharp edges of trauma. The mansion underwent complete renovation. Emma helped choose every color, every piece of furniture. Her new bedroom had floor-to-ceiling windows, always filled with light, never dark, never locked. The basement storage room was demolished. In its place, Daniel built an art studio with skylights and walls painted in colors Emma chose: sunshine yellow, ocean blue, hope. Twice a week, Emma saw Dr. Chen for therapy. The nightmares decreased from every night to once or twice a week. She regained the weight she had lost. Her smile returned. Genuine, real. Daniel restructured his entire life. Hayes Cybersecurity now had a CEO who handled daily operations. Daniel working from home 90% of the time. Breakfast with Emma every single morning. Dinner together 5 nights a week. Bedtime stories every night without fail. Helen's nephew Miguel arrived from Guatemala on a student visa Daniel had expedited. The young man enrolled in college on a full scholarship Daniel provided. Helen wept with gratitude and relief. Ryan Blake received an offer from Daniel, Chief Security Officer for Hayes Cybersecurity, with a substantial salary. But Ryan had different plans. "I want to start a foundation," Ryan said, "using security technology to identify child abuse in homes, training people to see the signs I missed, helping kids like Emma before it is too late." Daniel immediately wrote a check. $10 million, seed funding for the Grace Hayes Foundation for Child Protection. Emma's role when she turned 13 would be Youth Advisory Board member, helping decide which programs to fund, giving voice to children who had survived what she survived. In the living room, Daniel and Emma created a space dedicated to Grace's memory. Not hidden away, not painful, but celebrated. Photographs of Grace smiling, laughing, living. Her favorite books. The Monet art book she had shared with Emma. Fresh flowers every week in Grace's favorite colors. Emma often sat there talking to her mother's photo like Grace could hear. Like maybe she could. Mommy, I am doing better. Daddy, too. He works from home now. We have breakfast together every single morning. And he tucks me in every night no matter what. She touched the sapphire bracelet on her wrist, the one piece of grace that had survived everything. Thank you for this. It kept me strong when I was scared. Daniel found her there one afternoon, sat beside her, put his arm around her small shoulders. I think your mom sent us Ryan and Helen, Daniel said softly. I think she is still watching over us. Emma leaned into her father. I think so too. 1 year after Emma's rescue, the Grace Hayes Foundation held its inaugural gala at the Beverly Hills Hotel, the same ballroom where Daniel had met Victoria. Full circle. But everything was different now. 500 people filled the space. Donors, advocates, survivors, all gathered to support the foundation's mission. Daniel stood at the podium, Emma beside him. 1 year ago, I failed my daughter in the worst way possible. I invited a predator into our home. I ignored the warning signs. I chose work over presence, and my daughter paid the price. The room was silent, attentive, but 3 people saved her. Helen Carter, who risked everything despite threats to her family. Ryan Blake, who recognized abuse and built a case that brought justice. And Emma herself, who never stopped fighting, never stopped hoping. He looked down at his daughter. She nodded. Ready. Emma stepped to the microphone. At 8 years old, she was still small, but her voice carried strength that belied her size. My name is Emma Hayes. 1 year ago, my stepmother hurt me. She hit me, starved me, locked me in dark rooms, made me work until my hands bled, threatened to send me away forever. The room held its breath. I told people what was happening, but no one believed me at first, because abuse does not always look like we think it should. It happens in big houses, behind perfect smiles, by people who seem wonderful. She looked at her father, then at Helen and Ryan in the front row. My dad almost lost me because he was too busy to see. But when he finally did, he fought for me. He saved me. And then he built this foundation to save other kids. Emma's voice grew stronger. In 1 year, the Grace Hayes Foundation has helped 247 children escape dangerous situations, trained 3,000 teachers and doctors to recognize signs of abuse, funded 5 safe houses, developed technology that monitors for abuse patterns. Applause began. Emma raised her hand for quiet. But more than that, this foundation represents hope, second chances. What happens when people choose to see, to believe, and to act? She looked directly at the audience. To every adult here tonight, listen to the children in your life. Really listen. They will tell you if something is wrong. To every child who is suffering, keep telling people. Keep fighting. Someone will believe you. Do not give up. Her final words rang through the ballroom. And to everyone who feels guilty for not acting sooner, like Mrs. Carter, like my dad, you can still make a difference. It is never too late to do the right thing. Standing ovation. Not polite charity applause, but genuine emotion. Tears on faces throughout the room. Emma raised her glass of sparkling cider. To my mother, Grace Hayes, who taught me that real love protects. To my father, who learned to fight for his family. To Mrs. Carter and Mr. Ryan, who risked everything to save me. And to every child still waiting to be believed, we see you, we hear you, we are coming. Emma Hayes, age 12, stood on the terrace of the Malibu mansion. 5 years had passed since the nightmare with Victoria. 5 years of healing, growing, becoming. She was taller now, hair longer, face losing the roundness of childhood. But the sapphire bracelet still circled her wrist. Grace's gift, Emma's talisman. Below on the beach, Helen walked with Miguel. He had graduated college, now worked as a software engineer for the foundation. Helen's gray hair had turned white, but her smile was genuine, real, hard-earned. Ryan Blake sat at a table on the terrace, laptop open, reviewing applications for the foundation's newest program. His book, Invisible Victims, Recognizing Child Abuse in Affluent Homes, had been a New York Times bestseller. Required reading and social work programs across the country. Daniel emerged from the house carrying a tray of lemonade. At 50 years old, he looked younger than he had at 45. The weight of grief and guilt had lifted, replaced by purpose, presence, love. He sat beside Emma, put his arm around her shoulders. You ready for tomorrow? Tomorrow, Emma would give the keynote speech at the Foundation's 5th anniversary gala. She had written it herself. Practiced for weeks. I am ready. You have come so far, baby girl. Emma smiled. We both have. And it was true. Daniel now ran Hayes Cybersecurity remotely, never missing Emma's events. He had dated once or twice over the years, but nothing serious. His focus was Emma, the foundation, healing. Emma thrived. Honor roll student, captain of her school's debate team, volunteer at the Children's Hospital. She painted often in the studio Daniel had built where the storage room once stood. Her artwork sold at charity auctions, raising thousands for abuse prevention programs. The trauma had not disappeared. She still had nightmares occasionally, still flinched at Ray's voices, still needed reassurance that people would not leave her. But she was not defined by what Victoria had done to her. She was defined by what she chose to do with it. You know what I realized? Emma said, looking at the stars beginning to appear over the Pacific. What, baby girl? Mom never really left. She is in the foundation, in Mrs. Carter's love, in Mr. Ryan's mission, in your fight to protect me. She touched the bracelet. She is in this. Daniel pulled her close. She is in you most of all. Emma smiled. Then she is in the 847 kids we have helped too. Every time we save someone, Mom saves them too. The foundation had grown beyond their wildest dreams. Chapters in 12 states. Technology deployed in schools nationwide. Trained over 10,000 professionals to recognize abuse. Saved 16 children from life-threatening situations. And it all started with one little girl who refused to give up hope. Helen and Miguel joining them on the terrace. Ryan closed his laptop. They sat together as the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant colors. A family. Not born of blood, but forged in fire. Imperfect. Scarred. But real. You taught me something, Emma said to all of them. What is that? Daniel asked. That family is not who you are born with. Family is who shows up, who stays, who fights for you even when it is hard. That is the family I have now, and I am never letting go. As darkness fell, the 5 of them remained on the terrace, talking, laughing, being present for each other in ways that mattered. Inside the house, on the mantle in the living room, a family photo held pride of place. Not the stiff professional shot from before, but a candid photo from a recent beach day. Daniel, Emma, Helen, Ryan, Miguel, all laughing, all genuine, all choosing to be family. Above the photo, Grace's portrait watched over them. Her smile seemed to say, well done, keep going, keep loving, keep fighting. Emma touched her bracelet one more time, made a silent promise to her mother, to herself, to all the children still suffering in silence. I will never stop fighting. I will never stop speaking. I will never let another child feel as alone as I felt. That was her purpose now, her mission, her mother's legacy living through her, and as stars filled the sky above Malibu, as waves crashed against the cliffs below, as her family surrounded her with love and presence and protection, Emma Hayes knew one truth with absolute certainty. Real love protects, fake love destroys, and she was surrounded by real love now, finally, completely, forever. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse, please call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 1-800-422-4453. You are not alone. Someone will believe you. The end.